We all know that Formula 1 can be a bit stale if there's a clear dominant winner in the championship, but something that spices up races is none other than crashes. Now yes, crashes might be a bit scary, but now knowing that 99% of the time the drivers are going to be okay and they're going to walk out the car, pretty much 100% of the time these days, crashes can be a bit entertaining. Is that bad to say? I kind of find them entertaining, you know? I know it might sound bad. I don't wish anything wrong to happen to the drivers. You know, it's a bit spicy when it happens in the race. So let's go over every single driver's worst ever crash, or every single driver that's on the grid. Because if not, there'd be a shit ton back in like the 50s when there was no safeties, things. Yeah, and there'd be so many, they're too much. So let's go over every single current driver on the grid's worst crash. Let's do that. Now yes, some drivers might have more crashes than others, Charles Leclerc, but we're only going to look at one. Down in the comments, put your guys' opinions on their worst crash. If you disagree with any of mine, then put it down in the comments, but don't whine about mine, please. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. Like, subscribe. I don't know why you wouldn't, because trust me, I have plans for this channel that are like, it's going to be great. Great journey. Come along. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video. So now, usually knowing me, I'd start clowning Charles Leclerc or Lando Norris about some of their crashes. Mainly Charles Leclerc because that's funny, but I'm a changed person. Today that's not happening, because first of all, we're going to talk about Verstappen and his, let's say, racing incident in Silverstone 2021. We all know what happened, we all remember. Not going to point fingers or not going to pin the tail on the donkey. Anyway, Hamilton and Verstappen, they've started their whole shenanigans lap 1 in the race. They were squabbling a lot until they weren't after Cop's corner because the safety car came out. Because of, well, Max Verstappen's 51G crash. Yeah, that's probably by far Max Verstappen's biggest crash. And let's be real, if he stays on the whole form that he's on now, pretty much, no retirements in 2023, no incidents. Yeah, is he gonna have a bigger crash? We'll see. Ha! You really thought that we weren't going to talk about Charles Leclerc now, did you? We are. I think Charles Leclerc's it wasn't his fault, like literally at all, but I think the worst incidents he's been involved in was none other than 2018 Spa. Why? Well, Hulkenberg kind of locked up, missed his braking point going into turn 1 of the first lap of the race. Hits Alonso. Alonso goes flying over the top of Charles Leclerc. Not necessarily flying, but more like gliding, like you know when you grind a skateboard over a rail? It was like that. You hit like a grind mid-air on Charles Leclerc. Now the thing is, the scariest bit about all of this, 2017, literally a year ago, there was no such thing as a halo. People were protesting it. They were like, no, this thing is ass. We don't want to see it. The drivers won't be able to see. But luckily, the halo was introduced in 2018, and luckily it saved Charles Leclerc's life. Because if not, well, let's be real. Fernando Alonso's car would kind of land on Charles Leclerc's neck. It'd go snap, he'd be dead. And that would be the end of Charles Leclerc's dream of winning a championship, which he still hasn't done. But yeah, that is probably Charles's most scariest crash. Now, there's obviously been a lot, and some that hit home, like the whole I am stupid moment in Baku, or the no moment in France 2022. But yeah, I still think Spa 2018 was his worst crash. Now, let's be real, Lando Norris doesn't really crash that often, but when he does, they are huge crashes. Let's just flick back the history books to 2023 Las Vegas, or even 2022 Miami. Big crashes, right? But there was an even bigger crash a year before 2022. Do your maths, that's 2021. Yeah, and yet again, I'm talking about Spa. The track that has literally taken so many lives away from racing, and luckily Lando stepped out of his car after his massive crash. It's Q3, 10 minutes on the clock or so, and it's wet. It's like mega like it's soaking wet. It's literally wetter than my desk after Charles Leclerc crashes out in Monaco. The tears are just piled up on my desk, and it's a sad sight to see. Lando Norris going up Eau Rouge because where else would he have a massive crash? Car starts to drift, doesn't it? He's in the wall, does a couple spins, thinks he's a ballerina. Yeah, very scary. Luckily, he walked out the car and Sebastian Vettel was there to be like, yo, I told you guys, it was a bit too wet. They didn't listen, but it's good that he's okay. So this is 100% Lando Norris's worst crash. In theory, the less races you have, the less chance you have of crashing out.
What?
Right? Yeah, well, not really, because Mazepin, he had one season of Formula 1 and he managed to crash out like 24 times in 22 races. Crazy. But we're not here to dwell about Mazepin's past and, well, all of his mistakes. We're here to talk about Zhou Guanyu, his worst crash, and probably the worst crash we've seen in Formula 1 for, well, a couple seasons. Yeah, 2021 Silverstone, rookie season, and he's involved in this. Now, I don't know about you, but that car seems to be upside down. I thought Formula 1 cars were meant to ride on four wheels and not point them into the sky, but that didn't really happen that day. Off the start, he gets into a little tangle, not his fault. He goes over someone's wheel, he gets flipped upside down, does a couple somersaults, thinking he's in American Ninja or something, whatever that show's called, and he's into the barriers. Like, over the tire barriers, into the safety barriers. Hanging upside down, they fished him out. It was all fine. He was totally fine. But still, honestly, a scary crash. Like, his worst crash by far. And for the fun of it, let me just say this. Lewis Hamilton, the selfish bastard, joke by the way, he was furious. He didn't really care about the crash, he just cared about losing the couple positions that he gained off the start. And because they hadn't crossed the first sector point, there was no real data for them to know who was in what position. So Lewis Hamilton got demoted back to where he started and not where he was. Selfish bastard. Now let's talk about a man with less podiums than Lando Norris wins. They're even. Yeah, Nico Hülkenberg, his worst crash was, well, probably not definitely, but it's in the mix of his worst crashes. 2018 Abu Dhabi. Did he slam the door on Romain Grosjean, or was Grosjean sticking his car in places where it doesn't belong? Either way, there wasn't really a gap there, and because of it, Nico Hülkenberg went flipping, somersaulting, whatever you want to call it, into the barriers. And his famous words, "I'm hanging here like a cow." That was intentional. That was intentional. Of course, there are tons of other crashes that we could actually put into, oh, his spot. Spa 2018, but we've already used that, so that would be kind of boring. So I'm sticking with this, 2018 Abu Dhabi. Now onto a driver that doesn't really crash out a lot, but when he does, it's 99% of the time a tangle with his teammate, or trying to kill Max Verstappen.
Joke, by the way, don't go crying in the comments.
What? Yeah, 2023 Hamilton, there was a lot of tangles between him and George Russell. Qatar is very prominent, and there was a couple incidents in Japan, wasn't there? But let's talk about 2016 Spain. What a race weekend. Not only did we see Max Verstappen win, was it gifted by the Mercedes boys on a silver platter and served with a nice little ribbon? Probably. Yeah, it was. But anyway, back to the crash. Hamilton just came out of nowhere, started to fly into Rosberg. There was a lot of controversy around at the time. You know, the whole championship battle between Rosberg and Hamilton actually hit the boiling point. And this just kind of didn't help either of them. Yes, they were clear of the entire field in that season, but still, that kind of ruined their whole... Did they have a friendship at the time? I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not them. But this crash was bad for both of them, but Hamilton especially. Can't really think of any other really bad Hamilton crashes. Maybe Monza 2021, but yeah. Monza 21 still up there. Could have died if there wasn't the halo because Verstappen's a heavy fucker and he probably would have squeezed him to death. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's one of those two. And yet again, speaking of another driver that doesn't crash out that often, but he does have a shit ton of DNFs, but only 5 of them, or 5 or so of them, are his fault. And yet again, I don't want to pin the tail on the donkey, but whose fault was this crash? And the crash I'm talking about is the 2016 Australian Grand Prix. Yeah, that was a scary crash. There was no halo at the time, of course. Going down one of the DRS straights, I don't know whether it was a DRS straight back then, but going down one of the straights, he was catching, like mega catching Esteban Gutierrez in the Haas. They're approaching the 100-meter board, aka the braking point or area around that. Esteban Gutierrez brakes a tiny bit earlier than that. Yeah, did Alonso expect that? I don't know, ask him. He probably won't, but you know. I don't know. What am I saying? But Alonso kind of anticipated him to brake a bit earlier. So Alonso doesn't let off the power. He's going full steam ahead like Thomas the Tank Engine, like full pedal to the metal. Hits Esteban Gutierrez in the rear, and this kind of sends him into the grass. And as a result, goes flipping and flipping and flipping. Definitely a scary crash, but he walked out the car like an absolute champ and said, yeah, it doesn't bother me. Yeah, and what? True champ. That's definitely his worst crash. I don't know what else there is. I know there was one crash that he had, but it wasn't even broadcasted or talked about. But I don't know when that was because there's not much information about it. But that was a bad crash as well, whatever that was. Anyway, Alonso, 2016, Australia. And now a driver that focuses more on body aesthetics and calendars than driving. Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, I think his worst crash was probably 2021 Imola. Not only was it with George Russell, the guy who wanted or did take his seat at the end of the season. Yeah, there was definitely some tension between them. But yet again, as per usual, I'm not here to play pin the tail on the donkey. Got it right that time. Whose fault was it? You tell me in the comments. But it was a pretty bad crash. Maybe George Russell didn't have enough room. Maybe there was just some miscommunication between the drivers. But George Russell goes flying into the side of Bottas. As a result, they go into the gravel, tumble out, and well, that's the end of the race for them. Kind of unfortunate. Yeah, more than kind of unfortunate. So, Imola 2021, I think that was Bottas's worst crash. And speaking of the terrorist himself, George Russell, the guy who was called Mr. Consistency for like the first 7 races in 2022, has absolutely flipped the script and become a mass serial killer / terrorist, punting out Sainz in Texas turn 1. Besides the point, I'm here to talk about another crash. A crash that is so funny to me that I'd nearly make a joke about this every day. Yeah, Singapore 2023. Now, wasn't it the most scariest crash, or is what? Well, it kind of was his worst. Maybe not his worst crash, but I'm gonna put it on the list. Because fighting for the win, his second win ever, and he goes and does that, whatever that was. Like, come on, George, keep it on the track. He could have won a race. He could have scored a solid podium. But no, he wasn't a terrorist. He kind of committed suicide, let's say. Looking so deep into the apex, he doesn't see the wall on the right, clips the wall with his right tyre, and goes straight on into the barriers, gifting pretty much Carlos Sainz a win, Lando Norris a P2, and Hamilton a P3. All for free. Just go have them. Definitely one of his worst ever moments in Formula 1, and you could see by his many tears. Now, speaking of bad races, a driver that has had a lot in recent times, but he's slowly starting to flip the script. With a good season in 2024, can he score a podium or even snatch Perez's seat? Probably guessed it, I'm talking about Daniel Ricciardo. He's had, well, a crazy amount of crashes in the last couple seasons, 2022, 2023. No, not 2023. What am I talking about? There's a lot of crashes that spring to mind. Monaco 2022, 2018 Baku. That was a roller coaster of emotions for me. Like, that hurt deep down. I wanted to see some good battles between them two, but it just didn't happen. But that wasn't his worst crash now, was it? Because his worst crash was 2023 Zandvoort. Oscar Piastri had just gone into the wall in the whole banked section, which is so hard to nail in F1 2023. Bane of my existence. I hate the track, because no, the track's amazing. That corner pisses me off. It was either hit Oscar Piastri's car, cause damage to his car, maybe even his chassis, and maybe even Oscar Piastri, or hit the wall and break his own hand or finger or whatever he broke. Either those two. And he chose the more sensible option. Yeah, let me go murder my hand. So he did. He hits the wall, breaks whatever he breaks in his hand, and has to step out of the car for the next couple races. Liam Lawson steps in. Now, this could have jeopardized his whole career. It nearly actually did. If Liam Lawson was better than he was, because Liam Lawson was insane, it could have changed everything. But luckily, he's back in the car feeling better than ever. Yeah. Can he score a podium in 2023? Can he have a clean season? That is the big question, without any crashes. He's been crash prone for a while. So that's why I'm saying Zandvoort 2023 was Daniel Ricciardo's worst race. Or worst crash, should I say. Because he actually, like, seriously got injured. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. If you disagree with any of my takes or opinions, put it down in the comments. I want to hear. Hope you have a safe and fantastic rest of your day. Subscribe, like, and peace.